Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. I'm your host Adz Steve and I have been joined and we'll have a co-host now, Steve. Oh, hey Steve, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks mate. All good. Yeah, not too bad.
You've been surfing recently?
I haven't, no. I think I was just speaking to you off camera. I'm off to Bali in December, so that's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire. But yeah, it's going to be good. Looking forward to it.
Like the new place?
Absolutely love it. I'm a bit blown away by it. You know, coming from the village hall to here, it's just, it's a million miles away. It just looks so good. It really does. And, I'm really pleased for you as well. So, what's the feedback that you're getting?
I think people like it. One of the biggest things that I wanted to create, so for those of you who don't know, we created a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym or grappling gym in Exmouth, in Devon. And I wanted to create like a proper bespoke, like proper built place. Because you get some of these other places around the local area that are sort of finished but not finished, or they've just got some mats thrown down in. And don't get me wrong, I do understand that the financial aspect of doing this was not cheap.
No. And it doesn't look cheap. It looks very, I want to use the word professional. I know you guys are very professional, but it looks, you walk in and you go, wow, this is a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, that was kind of the plan behind it. And the ironic thing about it is that we've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym on Roll Street, which, I didn't really realise until someone said, yeah, it's on Roll Street. So.
Yeah. And my job sort of takes me around Exmouth and with certain clients, and I hear the whispers, people are going, oh, have you seen this new Jiu-Jitsu place up the road? And I'm sort of thinking, yeah, I know the place. Yeah, And coming from the humble beginnings of the Village Hall, and this is not dismissing anything from village halls, but it almost gives, like you said, it's just mats thrown down, you're in a village hall, there's a certain aspect to that. Although it's very professional, this has gone up top shelf.
Yeah, but anyone that knows who's built a gym or done something like this before, where we live down here in Exmouth, it's not particularly an industrial town. No. So the industrial areas that are around here are quite sought after. So you got all the big business people that have got fingers in lots of different pies. We'll always get those sort of places. So being able to get this place and have it in the centre of town, being visible, all the cool signs that I've created and put out there is quite significant for getting people through the door. But also to have sort of like the ease of it.
Yeah. And I mean, most of the guys that come are within, 5 mile radius, would you say?
Yeah, well, from Exeter, so Exeter's like 8 miles away to the centre, 9 miles away. So let's call it within a 7 mile radius. There is no real, I want to call it real world, like martial arts. I'm not gonna take away anything from like karate or anything like that, because it's getting people doing stuff, but something that's like hard, grueling, and has a real physical benefit to people. There is nothing like this within the area, which is really good, because I've got a 5 to 10 year plan in my head that is going to expand that. So I hope it's going to be successful, really.
Are you going to get like long grey hair and a long grey beard then? Because you'll be like Sensei in 10 years' time.
I will. I'm also going to braid it as well.
And you're just going to wear a cloak. We'll just see you from time to time.
Everyone's going to call me Grandmaster.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm definitely braiding my beard. It's because I've started to grow it a little bit longer.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to grow it like real kind of pointy, so it's going to be very Lord of the Rings-esque.
Sort of sit there curling it in your fingers, sort of thing. And we go, oh look, there's Adz. And don't call me Adz. You'd just be like Grandmaster.
Mate, I was going through my videos the other day, like deleting them, because I do a lot of social media stuff through my phone. Just for advertising and stuff, and about 7 years ago, I remember walking through the middle of town, and there was this guy playing a flute, and he had he had almost like genuinely had like a wizard's hat on, and he had a big long beard that was all pointed down there. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to aim it at that.
Yeah, right. That's brilliant. I can't wait for that. It's going to be great. But yeah, so the gym, obviously, and I think I was speaking to you off camera about surfing and time restriction. How are you managing to balance the whole gym, surf, family, all of that?
Well, I'm in a really lucky position because those of that have been listening for a long time or have listened before. I did a 22-year career in the Marines, so
thank you for that service. Yeah, thank you.
I don't know what to say to that when people say it. I'm going to digress massively. Yeah. You're going to like this story.
Yeah.
You're going to like this story. The first time I ever heard that was I came back from Herrick 5, so back in 2007, Operation Herrick 5.
Okay.
And I got a mention in dispatches for being in an ambush for a long period of time.
Okay.
And my friend got a conspicuous gallantry cross. John Thompson is one of the first people I ever did a podcast with.
Right.
And we got invited, or basically told by the unit we were part of, is that you're going to the Admiralty House in London. So the Admiralty House is it's kind of like an American embassy.
Right. Okay. Of. Yeah. It sounds. Yeah. Yeah, sounds like that. I can picture it in my.
Yeah. So me and this guy, we go down there. We were in our number 2, so like our Lovets.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what's going on. So we rock up to the MOD building, just like next to the glass house.
Mm-hmm.
And they say to us, right, we're going to jump on a coach and we're going to go to the Admiralty House there. There's going to be lots of different delegates and stuff like that there. So, be respectful. And it's just to celebrate what you guys have done.
Yeah.
And so we go in there. And then when we get there, we get told that George Bush, the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, and Homeland Security are all going to be there. And we're going to meet them and all that sort of stuff. So long story short, I've got a photo at home of me shaking George Bush's hand.
Wow.
And he was the first person to say, thank you for your service.
Okay, right, yeah.
So that was like, nearly 18 years ago now. So the reason why I say that is that I don't really know what to say to that. I've been to America quite a few times now. And the Yanks, they say it all the time, and I don't really know what to say to it.
Yeah, I said it. I was in San Clemente, just surfed T Street, came off, and I was on the pier and stuff, and there was a couple of Vietnam vets, and we was chatting away. And literally everybody that walked past said, thank you for your service. And I was like, oh, right. So I said, is that a thing that people say? And he said, well, just everybody says it. So I suppose... I don't know, to show gratitude, I suppose.
I don't know what it is about the British culture, but I went on holiday in May. We went to Florida.
Yes, you did, yeah, and everybody was very jealous, yeah.
Yeah, drove all the way down to Miami. Didn't do the usual staying in resorts or anything like that. We just bounced between different motels and hotels, and just went and had a look around and chilled on the beach and stuff like that. There's no waves or anything like that, but it was just nice. Took the kids out to the Everglades. Typical British, we're going to America, this is what we're going to do kind of thing.
All the theme parks, everything.
Well, no, we didn't do any.
No, but you say about typical British.
Yeah, we didn't do that British typical thing, but we went down at Palm Beach. We stayed in Miami. A little hotel like smack bang in the middle of the city, which was like super random.
Brilliant.
But anyway, we went. We did the first sort of like 7 days doing that, and the second half of the holiday was on a massive cruise ship, and I mean massive. It's
I can imagine the ones out in America are.
Well, it was a Royal Caribbean ship, so it was huge. Like Royal Caribbeans are like the kind of premier kind of shipping for cruises. And when we got on there, we looked through the program and it said the first day we were there, it was at 11:30 and it was a veterans meetup, which is really random.
Yeah, right. So you didn't know anything about this?
I didn't really know anything about it. It was just there on the program. So I went down there and I sat down with a bunch of the Americans, and they like there were some real old boys there, like in their 60s and 70s, and some sort of like middle-aged guys. I'd guess I'd put myself in that now, being 43, but
yeah, you're there. You're there.
But sat down and just had a chat with them, and everywhere you went, there was just like stuff about veterans, and even after we came off the cruise ship, there was like a Memorial's Day kind of speech, because when we got off, it was Memorial's Day, and there was a guy in the middle of there, and he was doing like a big speech, and this was in the center of the Kennedy Space Center.
Wow!
And it was like it was kind of mental, and I don't know what it is, but like the patriotism there seems pure and quite overwhelming. Where I think as a British culture, it's very different. It's just kind of there, but no one's. I think it's frowned upon sometimes, like seeing someone wearing uniform, or in Exmouth particularly, because it's a big marine town.
Very much, yeah.
Lots of retired guys. There's the Commando Training Centre, literally like a couple of miles up the road. And they do big things, but it's kind of like, it's like one day a year, and that's pretty much it. And I don't know, I think just the way that the forces are held in the British culture compared to the Americans is very different.
It seems to be lacking behind, doesn't it? Like you say, that gratitude that's expressed and kept going, not just brought out for one day and then tucked away. And how do you deal with that? You just sort of, do you think about it a lot? Not
really, because we were integrated into the culture. You don't really think about that sort of stuff at all, because it's just kind of every day. I started writing a book about 3 years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, get on.
And the whole premise of the book is going to be about my military experiences, all the shit that I've been involved in, some of the surfing stories, stuff that I've been involved with, because I've been in some...
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, yeah. But that's brilliant.
Pretty tight shenanigans. And also, one of the main reasons why I started doing like the podcast as well was just to kind of get stories out there that wouldn't necessarily be told, and... The book's not going to be like a stereotypical biography, like my name's Adz and I was born in South Birmingham, my mum and dad, blah, blah. It's none of that stuff. It's kind of like each chapter is going to be, it's a timeline. Each chapter's a story.
Like spinning a yarn, basically,
Exactly,
yeah.
I mean, going massively digressing, the idea came from, I bought a book probably 10 years ago now by Jerry Lopez.
I love.
What's it called now? Like,
no, he is the Grandmaster. So you've got some competition there.
Well, this book, I can't remember the title of it now. It'll come to me. He basically wrote his biography, but didn't do it in like the story format, and just wrote chapters of stories that were interesting.
Oh, okay.
From the Hui to snowboarding and skiing and stuff like that. So that's where I kind of took the notion from doing that. Really.
Have you read Barbarian Days? It's a bit like that. Yeah.
But I found Barbarian Days really good up to the last quarter,
and it got quite,
and I couldn't really read anymore because it was quite repetitive.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I can't think of the author, but he's quite a famous guy that's done quite a bit of writing about, because the North Shore back in the day. Have you been to Hawaii?
No.
Unbelievable place. It's just, when I was back there, sort of.
Just pull this into you.
Sort of late 90s. There was you could just, there was this like heaviness in the air, you know. And you say about the Hui and all that, you know, the place is heavily guarded with locals and localism, you know, so it's a crazy place. But you say about stories, and I was talking to someone the other day, and I'm constantly talking about stories, stuff that I've done or stuff that, you know, happened. And people say, you should write a book. I never think about it. I just think, oh, everyone's done that sort of stuff. But like stuff you've done, no, not everybody's done that sort of stuff. Or like the travels that I've had, or the surf stories and things like that. And you just think, oh, well, it's just the norm. But it's not quite the norm, is it?
It's really not. Like, I've come to realise now, being a little bit older, and the value in life and money, and I guess I haven't really nailed down like what it's all about. But I've got a pretty good idea. But you know, looking back, the first 10 to 12 years of my, since all the way up to about like mid 30s, I reckon I must have lived about 10 different lives easily. I in the respect of the things that I'd seen, the things that I've done, and the things that I've witnessed.
Yeah, your exposure to that was like people amplified.
Yeah, I mean, bar the generation that were during the First and the Second World War, the travelling around, the going to different places, but the horrific things that you end up seeing that almost kind of, in a weird way, going really deep, kind of define what humanity is.
Yeah.
You know, those sort of exposures like set you up massively, and that's why, you know, that's one of the real kind of reasons why I decided I'm going to write a book and let's see where it goes. It might take me 10 years to write it.
I love this though. What? Excuse me. Have you got a title for the book?
I haven't yet. No.
That will come.
It will come, but like the podcast, it's quite unniched. Yeah. It's multi-layered because it's going to be about surfing. It's going to be about military stories. It's going to be like time on the mat and the people I've met and the different weird and wonderful kind of elements of each one of those things. It's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be quite unique. However, I'm not particularly literate. So
somebody, I read a text the other day within the group, or it might have been a while back, and somebody said, "Oh, did Adam write that?" And it was something about, you know, your bad grammar or just not punctuation, and I just had to have a little chuckle. Not that I've seen it, but
so
you know,
I
was really bad myself until I went to uni, and I had to. You know, Pete, I was almost still writing in capitals, you know, and people were like, "What is going on?"
I still know.
Yeah.
I still write capitals.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
but, you know, it is a skill acquired that you didn't necessarily need for your life up until the stage of writing a book. So
I'm putting stuff down, and I go back. When I go back and write a couple of paragraphs like I did yesterday, I go like, how did I write this? It looks like a 5-year-old has written it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Have you got spell check?
I have got spell check.
You need to use it.
But every single sentence, it's like, if I hadn't spell checked it while I was doing it, the whole thing would be redlined, I think.
You can do it after.
Yeah, I know.
I know you know. But I found a really good thing. There's a thing called editor in the corner, and you do that and it goes through it and it gives you alternatives, which you probably know anyway. But yeah, it's helped me.
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take me to write. There was a lady that I did a podcast with last year called Liz. Oh my God, I've forgotten the name.
Oh, she's not listening.
The Chinook chick. And she put me in touch with a bunch of editors. So
okay.
And book publishers. So
fantastic.
I sent them an email, and one of them said, "Yeah, we'll do it."
Brilliant.
But they said, take your time writing it. Don't rush it.
No. No.
Because I said to him I'd get them like a rough copy or at least kind of like the blurb of it by the end of the year.
Mm.
But they like, if anyone's ever written a book or writing a book, they told me like you have to have a minimum of 60,000 words.
That's a lot of words.
So I've done 30,000 so far.
Over 3 years.
Yeah, and half of that is a diary that I wrote when I was out on Eric 12. So
okay.
But you know, I'm literally, the part where I've got up to writing the book so far is like 3 years into my career. So there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, but as you've touched on before about life and different layers, that is part of your life, and then there comes a different part, and you think, oh, I'll put that down, or you might not forget something, but it'll be out of your mind, and that will be brought to the forefront for some reason. You'll put that down. So the way I see life is that you're constantly evolving through life, and you know what happens in 3 years' time will not be totally different, but it'll be different in some way. It's constantly evolving, isn't it? And constantly changing, and you change with it, and that's what brings that rich experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, and you're putting that down in the book and all that. That sounds brilliant. That sounds great.
Yeah, well, I've still got a way to go, and I'm still, you know, making those memories, man. You know, by you know, going, still surfing and still doing stuff and still meeting people. So, you know, by the end of the book, I'll probably be about 70 years old, and I won't even be able to read it myself because I can't see. So, I don't know. But, you know, it's a work in progress anyway.
Yeah.
But
it's a journey, man. That's what they say in Point Break.
It's a journey, man.
It's a journey. But yeah, so that's brilliant. So get on to surfing. You said that you went to Downderry the other day?
Yes.
From the videos that you sent me of perfect A-frames.
Yeah.
Paddle looked perfect.
Yeah, I mean, like,
just looked,
you know, that location, I'm not going to say it again, is is not particularly, you know, a secret, but yeah, it was great. And I love finding different places. I think as surfers, they're very kind of ritualistic and stick to what they know.
Very much so, yeah.
And I've become like that over the years. You know, when I was learning to become, I guess you could say, a competent surfer, I'd be going down to the beaches and just, you know, going in the white water all the time and all that sort of stuff. And now I've become a forecast watcher, and I only go when I know it's going to be good, because of my time constraints. You know, I've got kids that I've got to take to school and pick up.
Yeah.
I've got, you know, a jiu-jitsu gym to run and get back for classes, which is all manageable. You know, if it is going to be really good and I do need to be away, I've got a really understanding wife that, you know, knows that as long as we can arrange it in certain ways, that she can take the kids to school. But we've only got one car now as well.
Right, yeah.
Because we've...
So she's walking, yeah?
Yeah, she's walking. So we downsized everything.
Right, yeah. Got her a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about electric bikes, and she was like, no chance.
Do you know what? I was talking to somebody the other day. You can get these ones with like the long, like the old chopper saddles.
Yeah.
So you could get the kids on that, like in Indo. You know, you get like a couple of kids on the front, off to school.
When you said it exactly, Indo, not this country.
Yeah.
This country, like, I think you've got probably 7 weeks of the year where it's not absolutely pissing down all the time.
Yeah. Or icy or crap.
Or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the time limited for an electric bike, anything that's cool like that, 'cause she's probably got a leather saddle as well, because it's quite...
Yeah. Bit of rain in the electrics, it won't work. A bike won't start, Adam. Can I have the car? As you're pulling that driver's surfboard on the road.
And plus I'm driving, 40, 50 miles to a location that takes an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 40 minutes to the car. Imagine doing that on an electric bike going down the country lanes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've, you know, I lived in North Devon for a long time, and just being there on them swells You know, you can drive past on your way to work, on the way back. You'll see a swell. You could be in, out within the hour. Catch 5, 6, whatever, how many good waves. Get in your van and you're off within the hour. But living somewhere like this, as you say, wherever you go, whatever direction, hour and a half. What do you say is the nearest spot from here? What's Downderry?
Oh, that's an hour and 40-minute drive.
Yeah, so that's about Wembury as well, isn't it? Is it past Wembury?
No, Wembury and Bantham are about an hour.
About an hour,
from here, yeah. And I think a lot of the North Coast spots, wherever you go,
you're talking an hour and 20.
You're looking at an hour and 20, an hour and 40 minutes, but you can get to Fistral Beach from here, Newquay, in an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever go like Blackrock, sort of the Millock side of Widmouth, just down the A30, come off it straight through. So I would say I've done that quicker than I have done the North Coast.
Yeah, I mean the roads there are quite fickle. You're either stuck behind a tractor or an older person doing 40 miles an hour or something like that, which can extend your time. I mean, I went up to Lynmouth in the week,
and that's right at the top, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's still like an hour. It took me an hour and 50 minutes, but it normally takes me about an hour and 20, an hour and 30, and that was only because I got stuck behind a livestock lorry, which was doing about 30 miles an hour, and then I got stuck behind a tractor. So that was just really unlucky.
And your battery ran out twice on your bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think when you look at it from the distance point of view, travelling to spots from here is, it is time.
Yep.
However, we're in a central location where you can go anywhere and it's all around about relatively the same amount of time.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. But what I was sort of getting at is like an hour, say an hour and 20, hour and 40 at the most to anywhere. Getting changed, 2 seconds. Getting out, depends if it's going off, you're out there for, depends what time of year it is, I suppose, as well.
Well,
but,
I don't do any more than a couple of hours because I'm gassed anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Same here, really. So a couple of hours, and then, so you're talking at least a half day to go for a surf.
Yeah, it's a 6-hour round trip.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Easy.
Round trip, stop for coffee or a wee or whatever, anything like that.
Oh, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Wear my wetsuit when I get there.
That's it. And then just...
Two hours driving.
Or just hold it in until you put your wetsuit on.
2 hours drive,
yeah,
and get changed in the water within that 2-hour time frame.
Yeah,
an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's getting in the water, having a surf, getting some waves, getting out, getting changed, and back in the car, and then an hour and a half, couple of hours drive back.
Yeah. So you're talking about a 6-hour round trip, aren't you? Sort of like there, doom.
But you've got to take it for what it is.
It's about planning, like you say. If you plan it and go, right, I'm going to go, you look at the charts now, you can predict swells pretty much down to the hour, can't you?
You can, but the merge of Magic Seaweed to Surfline has messed up the algorithms, in my opinion.
Do you not think it's a good move?
Well, for Magic Seaweed it would be, because they'll be like minted now.
Well, for them.
And the guys are integrated within the Surfline group.
Yeah.
The algorithm for Magic Seaweed, I think they had it nailed near enough.
It was called Tragic Seaweed, though, towards the end,
Well, I used to call it Magic Lieweed.
Yeah, there was a lot of acronyms for it. It was different.
But I also think that, to an extent, when you looked at the forecast app, it was, relatively easy to use.
The format was all right.
And it was relatively, I'd say, like 70% reliable. I think NAM Surfline is really difficult because, again, when I was working in North Devon, for 5 years.
Yeah, he's at Chivner, wasn't you?
Yeah. It was easy just to look at the forecast and go, do you know what? I'm just going to go down and have a look.
Yep.
And then 9 times out of 10, you might score, you might not, but it's 10 minutes away from work.
Exactly. So it's not a wasted journey, or and you're looking at. Yeah. What was your favourite spot in North Devon?
My favourite wave all time is Lynmouth.
Lynmouth, yeah.
I genuinely like. I mean, it's just my personal opinion. Like, other people have theirs. There's lots of other waves around the Devon and the Cornwall.
So are
area.
you goofy or regular?
I'm goofy.
Right. So it would be perfect for you. Left-hand point.
But I also like the point at between Croyd and Saunton.
Baggy point.
Well, I call it down end.
Oh, down end. Sorry, yeah. Baggy's the other end, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry,
so,
down end point. Yeah.
So I really enjoy that wave, but that wave is quite hard to surf. I think if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna get absolutely smashed. And I've surfed pretty much all over the world, and that is the only spot I nearly drowned at.
Oh, really? Okay. What, getting in and out, or
well,
just?
I went for it like a good few years ago now. I went for a Dorney and I took a 7.4 out, so like a good size mid length, and
the whole world loves a mid length.
I was there on my own, nobody else there, and it was pumping.
Yeah, so it's quite daunting,
Well, I've never really, again, we're digressing from many stories here, but I surfed Bali when it was like 15, 20 foot.
Yeah, and that's a wave of consequence,
Yeah.
We'll get onto that maybe this podcast or another one, but yeah.
And, so I'd got my gear on and I went down there, and instead of going the route I would normally go out, which is an easier route, I'm not going to describe how to get down there.
No, I know what you mean. There used to be a rope years ago to get down to certain parts of it, yeah.
I went a different way because it was low tide, so it was out through the rocks, through the sandbars, through the gullies. Yeah. And as soon as I got into the water, the rip comes out from Saunton, comes across the front of the point, and then heads out sort of like at an angle across the back of Croyd, but quite far out.
Yeah, because there's a break bit further out called Muscle something, isn't there? Almost like the Cribbar, a little bit further out, which creates that sort of whirlpool,
And when I started to paddle out, it was really difficult to get up to the peak, up to the point, because the water's pushing you back the way you're paddling.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So I should have realised by then this is going to be quite funky.
but you don't.
Well, when I line up, and what people don't understand why it's called a line up is because you line yourself up and you pick points upon the shoreline. Exactly, well, this is what I do.
Yeah,
and you line yourself upon that, and that keeps you in the position.
Yeah,
especially on reefs. So I'd chosen a spot and I couldn't stay in it, and it was really, really difficult. And I did a real novice thing. It took me ages and probably about 30 minutes to paddle out when it normally takes me about 5.
That is a long paddle.
Yeah, but that's just going against the current.
Yeah.
And then I was waiting for a set. The first wave came, went for it, didn't get it. So I was like, instead of paddling back to the point where we were,
you started panic paddling and going for the next one.
Well, no, I went for the next one and I fucked that as well.
Oh God!
So then I turned around and started to paddle out, and the cleanup set came.
You're in the impact zone.
I was in the braking zone, of where it was. But what happens is that rip also pulls you really deep too.
Right.
So I was really deep, and the wave broke on me, and because it was, I'm quite not optimistic. I am quite real world with the size of things. It was double overhead, easy. So it was a good, solid 8 foot,
8 to 12,
8 to 10 foot easy, right?
Yeah.
And
a big wave,
and
a heavy wave,
and the white water just washed me onto the rocks. Now the rocks down there are like little fingers.
Yeah, the guts, aren't
and
they?
And they are sharp as fuck with cockles and muscles and stuff.
Limpets, all that, yeah.
So it washed me into the rocks, and I felt it, and I was like, fuck, I need to get out of this.
Yeah.
So I reset my body, put it the right way up, and I put my feet down. I was like, oh, this is all right. I was waist deep. But another set of white water came in, which again must have been about 10 foot of white water, and smashed me back into the rocks.
Yeah, right.
But then the water pulling back out again pulled me back. So I genuinely couldn't put my feet on the floor.
No.
So I was in this finger and I was just getting constantly washed round and around and around. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm going to drown in a minute because I can't put my feet down. I can't get my breath back. And luckily, the next wave that came washed me up onto the finger of the rock a little bit.
Right.
And I just went starfished on it, put the gloves and everything into it.
You was a human limpet.
And as that wave washed back out, I was like, I was absolutely knackered.
What about your board? Smashed?
I hadn't seen it yet.
Oh, right, okay.
And I crawled back up onto the top and I was like, oh man, that was horrific. And I pulled my board back up and the bottom, it wasn't like, there wasn't loads of damage to it, but the bottom of the board had been smashed, so I had to fix that. And I had a brand new wetsuit on I hadn't worn before, and all the arse cheeks had been ripped out of it. All my gloves, the fingers had been ripped out. And I did the walk of shame back, and I was like, man, I ain't doing that again.
And there was a guy up the top on YouTube.
Again, there was no one there. So that was the big thing for me, really, is like, I've surfed the majority of the time I'd say I'd surf on my own.
Well, yeah, same here, yeah. And I'll get to a story in a minute, but yeah, go on.
And so I got back up to the top and I was like, if I'd have died here or I'd drowned, there'd have been no one there to see it. They'd probably seen a board hanging up there with my leg.
Yeah.
And me just going...
and a wetsuit with no arse in it.
Yeah. Just some arseless chaps.
That's it.
Cut out, yeah.
What's been happening down there?
So, it was the only time that I've ever really kind of drowned, and it was just because I underestimated the conditions, which again, you should never underestimate the power of the ocean, I think.
But the time I had, I lived at Bideford at the time, so used to pop to Westwood Ho, which, is renowned for being a family beach. But because it's the same beach as Saunton, but separated by the estuary. But, I've had some of the best days there, and I've surfed a lot of places around the world like you have. And, people always say, if you can paddle out of Westwood Ho, you can paddle out anywhere because there's white water after white water after white water. Anyway, it was this really lovely day, and I was working up at Cavelli, and the guy said to me, there was a swell coming in. He said, look, if you get your paperwork done, you can go. Got there about 2 PM. Bright sunshine, perfect 3-foot swell. Took the longboard out, cruising about, just having the best time ever. And that summer particularly, everywhere I went, it's just like, oh my God, I'm like surfing like Kelly Slater. I couldn't put a foot wrong.
Kelly Slater on a longboard.
Yeah, no, and a shortboard as well, just all sorts. Yeah. But that would be, that'd be interesting. I wonder if he's ever rode a longboard.
I think he has. He's ridden the table because I watched a film called Shelter like 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
And he's on his surf.
And Rastovich was on.
Yeah, that's right.
That was brilliant. Really good film, by the way. Sure, really good. But so, I was out there, and then the swell started getting a little bit bigger. So I went in with a longboard. Took me, what did I have? I think I still got it like a puddle jumper or something. 6'2". Took that out. Wouldn't take a lot of notice, just getting a bunch of waves, just having a hoot, And because it's such a large beach, the water comes in, but there's nowhere for it to go. So it sort of like goes back on itself, and you've got the pebble ridge there, So it was just sort of tickling the ridge, and it's coming back and meeting. And I caught this one wave, didn't kick out where I should have done. Start a couple of turns in, come back out, and all of a sudden, I'm sort of looking at white water, like you say. 4, 6, whatever, and then loads behind it. So I thought, I'll just duck dive. So I duck dive, got through that one, duck dived another one. All of a sudden, the ball got washed from underneath it. It had like this almost raw new power, like a new swell would have, as it was gaining size. Come out, ball whacked me on the back of the head, and it just literally felt like somebody was standing on my back. And I just couldn't get off the bottom. And I was under. I was thinking, come up in a minute. But I just wasn't moving. And I was thinking, what is happening here? And then when I finally come up, I just was like, got some air, and this other one just went straight on my head, and I'm just like getting fully washing machine, the leash was around my neck. and I was trying to get it off. And I see my fingers there, like, a bit bent. It sort of bent my fingers over. So I finally come up and taking on a load of water. Came in, lying on the ball, just hair everywhere, wetsuit just all over. I've taken on loads of water. I had big bell ends at the end. And I came out. I was just on the beach like, oh my God, that was just the worst wipeout I think I've had. And I walked up, my mate was standing up on top of the ridge, Johnny. I said, all right, John. I said, I nearly died out there. He went, yeah, I know, I was watching you. Just, but yeah, so it can be, if you're not taking notice of the conditions at a certain time, or you think, oh no, it would be all right, it just goes to show that Mother Nature will just whip your ass.
Well, that part down Westwood Ho down there, that estuary mouth, I know it's further down between Saunton and Westwood Ho. I used to run the water sports centre for Chivner.
Okay, yeah. Down towards Skern and all that way.
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Yeah, right.
That estuary is renowned for being one of the most dangerous estuaries in the UK, purely for the fact that two massive rivers combine together and they rush out. So if you've got any boats that are moored up around there and the tide's quite strong, or the moon state is quite full, or it's a new moon, or whatever, it creates a massive pull.
And there's a bar there, isn't there, that a lot of guys that I know with boats, because you get some big ships coming into Bideford, and they only come in on a real big tide, because that bar, it's almost like a standing wave.
Yeah.
And apparently sort of smaller vessels have got pulled up it, gone.
Well, where Westwood Ho is, I haven't surfed the beach there, but I've surfed it when it's been really big along the reef along the left. So if you go right out where it goes around the corner. What
they call ship pipe as it comes out past Pier House and all that way. Yeah.
So I've surfed there quite a lot. And that can be really gnarly as well, purely for the fact that it breaks really close to the rocks.
It does, yeah.
And the rocks are super sharp as well.
Yeah.
I mean, about bar like Kimmeridge Bay and Lulworth Cove, like down on the south coast where it's kind of like slate and slab. Everywhere else is pretty much like barnacly and spiky rock.
I was part of Bideford Bay Surf Club for a while, and we used to just go out on the rescue boards on our knees or swim out. And when it was on low tide, the rocks there, you even put your foot on it, you're like, whoa. But then you go round towards Greencliff and all that way, and there's some lovely breaks along there. But they've again, like you said at Down End Point, they've got the guts coming out. There's a lot of that, so which makes it good. But
yeah, I mean, I'd still say that Linworth was my favourite wave though, just because of the length of the ride that it provides. But you need to have local knowledge to understand like when it's going to work, what time of the tide is, and like for me, I have a specific time of the tide at Linworth that I enjoy surfing.
Do you prefer it dropping or coming in?
I'm not going to tell you when I like it the most.
Right then, that's just no need for that.
But I have a specific time of the tide that I enjoy it the most, and I've got like a little app on my watch called Dawn Patrol.
Okay.
And it tracks like the waves that you've had, how long you've spent.
Is that a Garmin?
No, it's an Apple Watch.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, because I've got a similar thing on the Garmin.
Yeah, I used to have a Garmin, but I didn't find it very user friendly.
Okay.
So I think I've done at least a couple of K riding waves there on a good day, which that equates to like maybe 3 to 5 minutes of riding waves.
Which is, if you put that all together, that is a hell of a long time riding a wave, isn't it?
It's like watching, like when you used to watch the odd Sebastian Inlet waves, or when people talk about surfing Bell's Beach, or some of the other really long points where like they're going along Jeffreys Bay.
Jeffreys, J Bay,
where like you get to a point where your quads are just burning because you've been riding for so long.
Well, they're picking them up right off the point, then coming on the inside, then picking up again. And, you know, I think it was on the end of summer, wasn't it? Where you just said,
I think the best wave I ever had there was, it was a really big day, and I picked the wave up halfway between the river mouth and where Blacklands is, and I surfed it from the centre all the way down to the cliff at the bottom of Blacklands, and I think that must have been about a minute.
Which is a long way.
Like minute and a half like ride.
Because where the cliff is where you go up the hill, isn't it? From
it's a bit
as you're coming out of Lynmouth. Yeah, that's where the cliff
it's
is.
Like it's about it's like a quarter of the way up.
Yeah,
the
it
hill,
sort of goes into the bay,
it.
doesn't it? Yeah.
And I rode it all the way in. I was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not paddling back, and I ain't walking back. So I just went back to the car. Yeah. I was like, I'm not going to top that.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I get out, and that's kind of how my surfing is these days. Is that, you know, again, surfing this week, Surf Lynmouth had 5 waves.
Nice.
It was really. I was in there for 2 hours. I had 5 waves. It was really busy.
Yeah, it does. Like you said earlier, it's a small peak, isn't it? And when people are on it, it's
yeah. But I caught 5 waves. A couple of them were like really nice long ones. I was happy with that.
Smashed a couple of turns in.
But, you know, you just spoke to me 10 years ago, I'd have been thread as I didn't get more.
Yeah.
But I'm not about hassly stuff.
No. And I think, the older you get, the more sort of chilled you get. And, you know, you're happy. If you get 2 good ones out of a session, you'll come in so stoked. But if you stay out and like you say, we've all done it. We go, no, I've got to get another one. So you get this sort of like, I've got to get it. It just makes you really grumpy, and you're like, wow, you know. So.
Yeah, I think also training jiu-jitsu takes the ego out of it massively because I'm always really. What's the word? Critical. I've always been very critical of my surfing. I always want photos and videos of me when I can get them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I've got them, like it's taken me 20 years to get rid of like having a really bad poo stance, being really stiff. And a couple of years ago, I did a podcast with some guys from Ombi Surf.
Yeah, right. Really Australia. Cool guys, yeah.
Yeah, awesome guys. And
I've watched a lot of their stuff.
Going through sort of like their training and doing that sort of thing, like really helped me massively. Mm. But I haven't leaned into it because I've been so busy with other things. I haven't really leaned into it. For probably about a year now, but I've now come to appreciate that, and this is why I ride the equipment that I do now. Is that I don't ride, you know, your Paizel Phantoms. I don't ride your Channel Island like thruster boards because there's no point in me buying something like that because I'm never going to be able to use it to its full capacity.
No, yeah.
People buy stuff because advertising is brilliant these days. It goes, if I buy this board, I can surf it like this. Unless you're a professional surfer.
The reality is so much different.
It's you're going to surf like a stiff stick man.
Yeah.
You might do some like great turns on it.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. There's people, I mean, you know, I said I was part of Bideford Bay Surf Club and been sea swimming or been involved in the ocean for 30 plus something years. So, but people say, oh yeah, I was out swimming this morning. Well, was you actually swimming or was you bobbing around? And then when people say, oh, I went surfing this morning, did you actually go surfing or did you play around in the whitewater? I don't mean that in a like, because everybody's got to learn. And I know what you're saying. But Rob Machado put it in a really good way. He said in the 90s, pretty much the whole of the 90s, 95% of the population were riding the wrong board. We all wanted potato chips, rocket out, about this thing, because Kelly Slater rode one and was all like, we want that, but nobody rode it to its full potential. So I've up at my place, I've got like a 6.6 puddle jumper, which is like 48 litres. You know, that would be considered a mid-length.
Well, that's what my mid-length is. So I weigh 76 kilos, and I've got a 7.0 mid-length that is 48 litres.
Yeah.
But I've got a 6.4 20.
Yeah. Oh, I love a 20.
Which is, well, all my boards are pretty much 20s.
Oh, I love 20s. That is real surfing.
So
to me.
I've got a 6.4 like thruster shape, more rocker in the nose, but it's not like super rocketed out like you say.
Yeah.
But it's just built for speed.
Yeah.
And that's 38 litres. Now, you could argue, go on, you listen to the guys from Ombi or go on to anything. Yeah. They say it's not about the volume in the board. No. It's about how you catch the board and all that sort of thing. I'm going to disagree massively, because having more volume in my board helps me get into those waves. And again, the shape of the board is brilliant.
Yeah, template.
But a short board like a Pizel or something like that, I am never going to surf it to its full potential, its full performance. So it doesn't matter to me whether I have more volume under my feet, as long as I can do a cutback and reset my line or come really high, generate speed on a wave to maintain it and stay on it and enjoy it, and maybe do some turns that maybe throws a bit of spray off, not make it fucking rain, because that's never going to happen, is it? No. But as long as I can do that and enjoy it, the equipment that I have got at the moment is amazing. But that's just me.
Yeah, and there's another guy called Cale Brock. He does a thing and he's really good. And he's got so into mid-lengths lately. And he's right, what the Ombi guys say as well, because what I ride I think it's a 7.2 Tiki, like mid-length. But I ride that as a 20 with the big MR twins in it. And I've had that at Crackington Haven, gone from one side of the bay to the other, where everyone's paddling around on JS, zero gravities and stuff like that, not getting anything. And I'm just having a hoot. And somebody come over and goes, "What are you riding?" I said, "Just an old Tiki." You know, but it makes you think more about your surfing, and it slows it down, and it gives you that sort of time to concentrate on doing stuff. Holds its speed as well.
You don't get anywhere in surfing without generating speed. Speed creates stability. Stability then gives you the ability to, whether it is you're a beginner, trim your rail to be able to do those little turns, or get your weight on your back foot and really like turn into your hips and look the way you're going, and get your back foot and your board that's shaped the way it is to have a rail to be able to generate that turn, to whip it back round and do the things that you want it to do.
They're shaped that way and that way for a reason. And Ombi, you've probably watched this. Who's the coach there? The South African guy. Get his name. But somebody told me this years and years ago. They said surfing is not meant to be done on a flat board. That board is meant to be like 3D almost, you know. So, and that's how you do it. But that's not surfing. Surfing, as much, and you said about your poo stance, but as much as you can get that board on a rail and speed you can go. And I'm not, sometimes, like I said, that summer I was surfing just like a pro every day. Sometimes I go out and I'm the biggest kook in the world, but sometimes I'm all right. But getting it on that rail and having speed, that's the key for me at the minute. And the bigger boards, like you say, can sort of allow you to do that.
But the bigger boards for me also have the volume in it that, because I don't get into the water that much, I probably, through the winter, I'll probably surf maybe 2, 3, 4 times a month. That's probably it.
Yeah.
That's the amount of time I'll get in. My paddle fitness, I mean, I generally stay quite fit and healthy anyway.
Yeah.
By doing lots of different things. but the paddle fitness is like an endurance athlete. Unless you're doing it repetitively over and over again, the skill fade becomes a massive factor in it.
It's about conditioning, isn't it?
Exactly. So conditioning your body, so being able to do that all the time, but having a little bit of extra volume in there as well also enables me to float a little bit better and get back to the peak a lot better.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I was on a shorter board that had like 28 liters of volume and stuff, I'd be hanging out.
Yeah. I mean, we've all done it where you just like, you feel like you're in a rip, but you're not, because the board's like this under the water. You might as well be swimming, but when you say about conditioning and stuff like that, I remember traveling sort of when we was younger, it made such a difference because you was in the water every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, going to different spots, and after a while you just found that your positioning was better, your paddling was better, your wave selection was better. It's just, it just made a difference. So
where do you think like you want your surfing to go in? Because you're like, you're in your 50s now.
Yeah.
And I'm talking from a 43-year-old. I know I'm definitely not getting any younger. Not that anyone gets any younger unless they've got a time machine.
Yeah.
Like, where do you see it? Where do you see yourself going with it?
Well, I always think surfing was so important in my life. It was just everything. I talk about it, dream about it, watch it, talk to other people about it, and then get so bored about it. Just everything in my life. I know it's still really, really important in my life, but not so much. I'd be happy. I don't know whether the word selective is more, is apt for what I'm trying to say. It's hard because I'd like to just get to a break, go out, have a really good surf, get in the car and go, oh, that was brilliant. But then if you don't surf enough, you don't keep that up. It's a bit like golf. You have to keep going to get good at it, don't you? Like Kelly Slater, I think he said the best practice for surfing is surfing. You've got to do it. So I think it's a bit of a hard question, really. I'd like to be able to get to a stage where I could do a couple of trips every winter in warm water, like the trip I'm going on in. I'd like to do that for about a month every year. But I don't know. I was thinking about moving back up the North Coast, maybe. Because I like what we touched on earlier. Just driving past, seeing that swell. And later that evening, you'll say, oh, I went for a surf. And, it could be just a 24-hour swell that just came in. So whether I'm sort of like that travelling surfer that goes and then comes back on, I don't know. Bit of a hard question.
I think for me, like for me, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I think the work balance, I wouldn't even really call it. I don't even call it work because I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, and they say, don't they? If you enjoy what you do,
I enjoy teaching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, good.
The therapy stuff is enriching because you're dealing with people all the time, and I've got time and downtime in the middle of that to do this, to do the podcast now, to go surfing when the swell's good. So, it's kind of 6 and 2 3s, isn't it? You can argue that, I'd love to live back up in North Devon and do the things like you say you do. But then if I drag my family up there, my missus wouldn't go because she works in Exeter. No,
that's right.
And all of our links are all here in the local area.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have gone and lived in Australia, but like you can't look in hindsight. I think what I'm doing at the moment is significant enough for me to be able to justify traveling an hour here and there, because at the end of the day, right, it's time.
It is. And I think you said the key word there. It's about being happy with what you are doing at the moment. And it's not as though I'm really unhappy, but I suppose it's just that surfing thing. Like I said, it just gets in your head going, oh, I want to do this, want to do that. But I'm happy to do what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'd change it. but it's, you said the key word, happy. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I said it was a hard question. So I suppose I hadn't really thought about it that much.
Well, hopefully there's going to be some swell coming in by the end of the week. So
Yeah, well, I think the charts are lighting up pretty much all over the place.
get back in the water anyway. And well, you're going to be doing the surfing podcast with me for the visible future, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so.
And we've done an hour. So,
Brilliant.
Steve, mate, legend, thanks for talking to me.
So are you. Thank you very much, Adz. Cheers, bud.